Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, Venerable Professors, Venerable Mahasangha, distinguished guests, top university administrators, distinguished scholars, ladies and gentlemen. I was very much looking forward to attending this conference in person and to participate in the discussion of the day because this is a conference with a topic that is very important, not just for Myanmar and Yangon University, but also for the whole Buddhist world and perhaps for the whole humanity. When I was consulted about the possibility of a theme for this conference, to mark the 96th anniversary of the founding of Yangon University, with a view to further engage in more academic activities as part of what is coming as the centenary anniversary of this academic university. I have thought about a few topics, but I think the translation of the Tripitaka is a major concern. But I doubt many people would consider like this. That is why we should take this opportunity to raise the awareness of the importance of this issue, which is the translation of the words of the Buddha into many languages. We need to review our policy, our understanding, and we also need to revise the existing translation, if there is already one, in any language, in Burmese, in Thai, in Sinhala, in Cambodian, in English. If there is in a translation, or if there is partial translation but not complete translation, then what do we do? How we can collaborate to ensure that full translation of the words of the Buddha, at least the canonical literature, exists in as many languages as possible. So this is the first reason why I think this topic is important. If you compare with our brothers and sisters in the Christian faith have been doing, then you will understand the need, of translation. The Bible that includes both the Old Testament and the New Testament has been translated, we can roughly say, into all languages, because less than 3% of the world population, I repeat, less than 3% of the world population all over the world, just less than 3% of the population out of 7.4 billion do not have Bible in that languages. That is to say, 97% of the people in the world have the Bible in their tongue, in their own language. I Googled quickly and I came up with this information. By September 2016, that is 2 months ago, the Bible is translated or has been translated in full, okay, complete translation, into 554 languages, 554 major languages, I should say. But further, 2,932 languages, smaller languages, have the Bible available in their languages in a partial translation. Portions of the Bible have been translated into those 2,932 languages, nearly 3,000. This is out of the 6,877 known languages in the world. Although they still have around 300 languages to cover, those are very minor languages. They count only about 180 million out of 7.4 billion of the world population. Can we ask, in many languages the Buddhist canonical texts are available. Not just Theravada canonical texts, but also the Chinese Mahayana and the Tibetan Mahayana. We can ask this question. I have no answer at the moment, but I know that there are continuous effort going on around the world to translate the words of the Buddha into some languages. I'm not quite sure how many, but personally, I have come to know that the Pali Canon, some portion of it, have been translated into Serbian languages, that is in the former Yugoslavia. I have organized some financial support for the publication. The first one, two years ago, we published more than 300 suttas translation into Serbian. And at the moment, we are preparing the publication of the Serbian translation of the Majjhima Nikaya. I also know efforts are being taken to translate as many suttas from the Pali into Hungarian. Some of them have been published, some of them are being translated into Hungarian, not just the Pali canonical text, but also the Tibetan Kanjur and Danjur, that is the canonical literature and the commentaries, are also being translated into the Hungarian language. I know today we have various scholars attending attending this conference, and they are going to share their experiences. The most venerable Professor Dr. Sri Gambirayan, the Gambirayana, the Deputy Director for Academic Affairs of Mahajalalongkorn Vidyalaya University, a fine Pali scholar, and he has been involved in the Thai translation of the Pali Tripitaka, especially the canonical text, as we will learn from him, there are two translations of the Tripitaka into Thai. One is by Mahachulalongkorn University, his university. The other is by Mahamukul University. And Mahamukul University has translated not just of the canonical text, but also the commentaries, running nearly 100 volumes in total. One of the reasons that I wanted to raise the issue of the Tripitaka translation is that in the Theravada countries, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos and Sri Lanka, the study of the Buddhist scriptures has been the main responsibility of the Sangha, who dedicate full time to the study, the promotion and the imparting of knowledges related to the scriptures. But what we have been emphasizing in our education as a Buddhist monk, if I may say so freely, is that we emphasize paraphrase translation. In Burmese we call Nisaya. In Thai they also have two kinds of translation, Pesap and Pewohan. And in Sinhala you call Samni. There's a paraphrase translation. This paraphrase translation is more emphasized than free translation from Pali to Burmese, from Pali to English, etc. I can say only, from my experience with the Burmese monastic education, if we look at examination, the syllabuses and the questions, the translation, the paraphrase translation, what we call Nisaya, is required in every subject, almost in every subject. We don't learn how to use a dictionary, a Pali dictionary, Pali to Burmese dictionary from the beginning. We don't learn that. This is what differs from a Western linguistic approach. In the West, Pali students, they have to learn how to use Pali and English translation from day one. And they don't have the kind of approach what we do in Nisaya. So as a result, straight away, they go into the translation technique from Pali into English and from English into Pali straight away. Because we don't use the dictionary, we use Nisaya in place of the dictionary. So this is about education technique, it's about the study technique and about the education system. But we do have translation as one subject. During my day, when I was young, we had to translate the Anguttara Nikaya. I think this day they translate the Chādaka Atthakatha. That Chādaka Atthakatha is used as a textbook. But I may be wrong, but from my experience, we don't teach student translation technique. Instead, we go back to the Nisia. We don't do, free translation, reading the Pali and then to come up with the Burmese translation of our own. The examiner of the exam, who mark the papers, in many cases I have heard they are not very liberal. Perhaps they don't follow the translation philosophy, the translation concept. As a result, they use a text, and they use a text as a mode, as an answer. If you don't follow the version of translation that they have in mind, that they have in their hand, you have a serious problem that you can fail. Translation, when it comes to translation, students have to learn how to make mistakes and then learn from that mistakes. This is how they can become good translators. We call it Badabjan in Burmese. We know, Badabjan in Badabjan, in the translation subject. We don't actually learn translation techniques. Instead, the Nisia, the paraphrase translation tradition, overshadows and dominates the free translation subject. This is to say, we almost don't have a free translation technique. That is why, not very long ago, I happened to discuss with the most venerable Professor, Dr. Chikinta, the keynote speaker today. We discussed, the need to revive a tradition of free translation. Perhaps we should set up translation society. Because we have lost the translation expertise. We don't have this. Unless we encourage, I think the next generation is going to have a serious problem with understanding the words of the Buddha, because the translation expertise doesn't exist among us. So I hope this conference in part will raise the awareness of the need for this kind of for this kind of effort, translation effort that we do have. But translation, we are not just focusing on Burma. We are talking about all the other country and beyond, like Mahayana, the East Asian Mahayana and the Tibetan Vajrayana, Buddhist scriptures. By 2010, by 2010, only 15%, I say again, 15% of the Chinese Mahayana scriptures has been translated into any other languages. For the Tibetan is even less. It was less. Only 5%. That is in 6 years. Only 5% has been translated into other languages. But today, the Tibetan Kanju, that is the canonical text, which runs 70,000 pages. Many scholars met in Varanasi at the University of Central Tibetan Studies, and they form a worldwide translators group, and they launch an international effort to translate all the Tibetan Buddhist scriptures first into English, then into other languages. At the moment, out of 70,000 pages, over 12,000 pages have been translated. More than 50,000 are to be translated. This is about Tibetan canonical text. So it's not just the Theravada, but also the Mahayana and Vajrayana Tibetan scriptures that need to be translated. Why we need to translate? I think this question has been answered, and I don't think I need to spend time on this. But let me refer to the introduction of the Burmese translation to Tripitaka, the official version, just briefly. I'd like to refer to page, that is page number 5 in the Vignette translation. The introduction is for all the translation. I'd like to read in Burmese. I quote, "Shesya Jipyadi Yama Bada Byan Mimirogu Piansu Yeda Japi Pi Bada Piango Piansu Yeda Luba de the Law Sojo Mimian Pashili Piansu Vishi Mambedi Do Shi Bipitole Shi Jado Bora Na Adono Miapian Piansu Tajin Jam Jena Yang Yajin Mishi de Ibada Bada Piango Tamai Piansu Ajin Piti." It says that, okay, before this the official version of the Burmese Tripitaka was undertaken, that is in the 1950s, early 1950s, just before the Chattasanggayana. I understand this is the same in Thailand and in Sri Lanka. Effort to translate the Tripitaka into their languages was undertaken as part of the celebration of the 2,500 years of the Buddha's Mahaparinibbana. So before that, this introduction says, although there have been translation of the Tripitaka into Burmese, I understand there was no complete translation, but portion of it. Although there have been the portions of the Tripitaka translation into Burmese, those translations, they use terms, Burmese terms, are so ancient that they are not eligible to the generation in the 1950s. Therefore, those old translations, they were not satisfactory. This is the reason to undertake this. Actually, there's another one, because before the official translation in the 1950s, as part of the Buddha Jayanti, as I have just said, we didn't have the complete translation. So what happened is that the treasure in the Tripitaka is not known to the majority of the Buddhists, which is lay people. One paragraph in the translation says, Loka ye dhamma ye yasa ye do twin. I quote, Lay group you light na jin do ya a chatlet a jong a ya person ya a mya ja pa win liat shi do le Pali Bhatha ko ma jwan chin mu jaung Yadana thok let we thai ma thong sam ma khan sa nai takae lo. End quote. It says that the Tripitaka contains wisdom that we can follow in this contemporary age, related to worldly affairs, related to spiritual practices, and also state affairs. Although it contains treasures, wisdom related to those important issues in our life, because many people do not have access to the Pali language. That is why it's like having the treasure in your hand, but do not know how to make use of it. In brief, before and during the Buddha Jayanti period, we have established that the earlier translation, the incomplete one, the language used in those translations was not quite eligible to the present generation. I think this remark is quite relevant. Maybe we can use this remark to ask ourselves, what about the language that we say the Burmese? The Burmese language in the 1950s, is it eligible to the people in 2016? That is after 6 decades. I know the Thai translation, okay, in 2000, well, in the Buddhist year of 2500, they published the first one, the first translation, and since then they have updated, and they have also abridged. And they have abridged the translation into 12 volumes, into 6 volumes, into 3 volumes. Various efforts have been going on in Thailand, and some of them they call Pad Thai Pidok Samrat Prachachon, that is Tripitaka for the public. Selection of parts of the Tripitaka and the language is also easier. My singular is not good. It's not good, but I rely on the remark by my professor at Oxford, Professor Richard Combridge. He thinks that the Sinhala translation of the Tripitaka may face the same problem. That is, the words in the Sinhala translation, they are so learned according to his own usage of the word, too learned. That means they are intelligible only to the learned, and the majority of the public would find it a problem to understand. So even if we already have the translation, the question that we need to ask here is, do we need to revise? Over the years, I have been teaching a selection of suttas, such as the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, Nattalakkhana Sutta, Mangala Sutta, Satipatthana Sutta, like this. If I teach, Burmese people, usually professionals, I would provide both official Burmese translation and also English translation. They think, the Burmese translation is too difficult for them to understand. I think partly because the translation follows the Pali style. Although the official policy in 1951 was not to follow the Pali language style, but to follow the Burmese language structure. Whether that happened, remains, for discussion. So one question that I like to repeat is the translation that we already have in Burmese, in Thai, in Cambodian, in Sinhala, and also in English. Are they intelligible to the present generation? If you look at the English translation of the Tripitaka, for example, the Digha Nikaya was first translated and published by the Bhaita Society, translated by Professor T.W. Reyes David, the founder of the Bhaita Society. The first volume came out in 1899. That is 117 years ago. The second volume, in 1910. The third volume, 1921. By 1985, a new translation was done by Maurice Welsh, as we all know. That is, after 8 decades, a new translation came out. The Anguttara Nikaya, the first English translation came out in the 1930s. The first volume, 1932, second one, 1933, the fourth one, 34, the third one, 1934, the fifth volume, 1935. Sorry, the fourth volume, 1935, and the fifth volume, 1936. Consecutively from 32 to 36. 5 volumes came out, translated by F.L. Woodward. By 2012, Bhikkhu Bodhi has done a new translation. That is also after 8 decades. The Samyutta Nikaya, the first generation of translation, was done between 1917 and 1930. By 2002, That is about 7 decades later. A new translation was done. The Majjhima Nikaya, the first translation, was done in the 1950s. By 2002. That is 40 years later, a new translation was done. So the first one that I like to propose here is the need to review our translation policy and expertise. One nation alone may not be able to do this. We may need international collaboration. There is also another reason why I think this theme, the theme of Tripitaka translation, is relevant for today's conference and perhaps the centenary celebration of Yangon University in 4 years' time. The reason is that because Yangon University has produced some internationally known translators of the Tripitaka. The Theravada Buddhist canonical text. Wu Shui Zhan, for example. Wu Shui Zhan was a graduate of Rangoon College. That is, before it became Rangoon University and then Yangon University. Among the subject he studied was Pali. And I believe, he followed a Western linguistic approach because his Pali teachers were from Europe. As we all know, he was the first scholar to have translated the Abhidhamma Sangha into English. He made a draft available, and then Mrs. Reyes David edited it, polished it, and it was published in their names. And he also translated, Mr. Shui Zhan also translated Katha Wattu, that is one of the 7 texts of the Abhidhamma. We all know points of controversy. That's Katha Wattu, his translation. Another translator associated with Yangon University was Professor P. Mountain, a graduate of Yangon University himself. He did his master's at Calcutta University, and he also went to Oxford University, where he translated the Visuddhimagga, the first English translation ever, and also the Glass Palace. He is Burmese Chronicle into English, and both were published by Oxford University. For his effort, he got a degree called Bachelor of Letters from Oxford University in 1922. Another translator, also from Yangon University, was Sarah Utetila, a learned Burmese monk who was in England during the World War II and continued to live there until the mid-1950s, when he was invited by the Burmese government to come back and join Rangoon University as Abhidhamma teacher. While at Rangoon University, he translated Vibhanga, one of the 7 texts of the Abhidhamma. The Abhidhamma canonical texts published by the Paritext Society are mostly translated by Burmese scholars, except the Bukla Panyati, which was translated by DPhil. So I think by picking up this topic and trying to review where we are with our translation effort and where we should proceed to. This collective effort will be a great honor to Yangon University, the institution that has produced some of the best translators of the Theravada Buddhist canonical text. Today, in 2016, a lot of Buddhist texts in its original languages are available online. Mainly, the Chinese Buddhist texts, all of them are available online. Not just as PDF text, but a kind of DPhil tag, and you also have digital catalog. You can search online. You can look at this at on the website of the they call CBETA, CBETA, had by Venerable Professor Bhikkhu Huimin and Professor Eming Du from Taiwan. The Tibetan Buddhist texts are also available online, all of them are available online. You can look at them on the website of the Tibetan and Himalaya Library, hosted by West Virginia University in America. When it comes to the Pali canonical text, and not just a canonical text, but also the commentary, Atthakatha, and Tika sub-commentary, we do have on CD. We do have them on CD, but we don't have them online, especially with digital catalog. Some of the Theravada country don't even have relevant font, Pali font, to go online so that we can search universally. That is the Pali Unicode. At the moment, based at Maharajarankon University, the International Association of Buddhist Universities, IABU, is trying to put a union catalog of Buddhist texts. That is, digital catalog. To create a digital catalog, because a digital catalog already exists for the Chinese Buddhist text and for the Tibetan the Buddhist text, but not for Theravada, the Pali text. So we have formed a team to do this. I'm very honored to be part of this team, to be leading this team with Professor Philip Stanley of Narrabri University as co-chair, with him. I don't know much about digitization, I don't know much about computerize them, but I have some networking, some friends, among the Buddhist scholars worldwide, because for the last 6 years, we had a project also based at Mahachulalongkorn University in Thailand. We had a project called Common Buddhist Texts. That is for Theravada, Mahayana and Vajrayana, for 3 main Buddhist schools to come together to select portion of their texts and put them together, Common Buddhist texts, into 4 chapters. The historical Buddha, and then the Buddha as developed in the other tradition, maybe commentary, Pali commentary, maybe also in the Mahayana, Vajrayana, and the Dhamma and the Sangha. But 20 scholars are involved in this project. The text is available online. In English, we have a text which runs up to about 400 pages. You can see the direct translation from the original text. So this is to inform the conference that an international effort has been going on for the translation of the Tripitaka, because in the Common Buddhist text, we have had to translate anew what we have put in the text. Before I wrap up, I'd like to offer some thoughts about translation. Translation of holy books, meaning religious texts, may they be Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Islamic, any religious text. Any religious text, is different from translation of any secular text. In any secular text, what you have to do is to follow some ethical code, that is copyright law, etc. And copyright law goes back only so far, just maybe about 100 years like this. For example, in Europe, any text that was published before 1910, there is no copyright anymore. But when it comes to religious texts, the copyright is not a big question. The main question centers around the scholarship authority, meaning the acceptance of the work in the eyes of the learned people, the academics. So scholarship authority is number 1. Number 2 is the state authority, that is the authority of the government, the rulers. And the third one is finance. So I'd like to briefly discuss these 3 issues. The scholarship authority is important. If one individual person translates it, it will be an individual work. If he does it without the backing of the religious authority, say the Sangha, in Myanmar, for the Sangha, in Thailand also the Sangha, this Mahathira Samagama, the Supreme Sangha Council, and in Sri Lanka the Mahanayaka and the Sangha. Without that backing, the translation is difficult, especially those days. this problem is not unique to Buddhists. Actually, the Buddhists don't have big problem with this. The problem, the scholarship authority, has been mainly with the translation of the Bibles. For example, a scholar from Oxford called John Wycliffe translated the Bible in the late 14th century. That's 1383. His translation was not accepted by the church. At that time, in England was still a Catholic country, not yet Anglican. So Oxford University, which was dominated by monks, rejected and banned the translation of John Wycliffe in 1408. Oxford University was very powerful in the Christian theology. In 1555 and 1556, they established a court, an ecclesiastical court, that's a religious court. And they put on trial, three leading scholars. Two of them were bishops. The last one was the archbishop. The archbishop was the highest authority in the country. And they were considered to have to hold a different view. They were considered to be heretics. And they were burned to death at Oxford University. Not many people have heard of this. The place they were burned to death is just outside Balliol College at Oxford University. So John Wycliffe translated the Bible, long before those three scholars were put to death. So people were still very conservative. And also in the Middle Ages, that is in 1199, Pope Innocent, the name of the Pope was Innocent. The Pope Innocent, he banned one translation of the Bible because that particular translation was promoted by a sect called Cathar, who were prominent in the history of the Catholicism. So to be authentic, we need to have the backing of the if you like, the Sangha authority when we refer to Buddhists, and the church authority in Christianity. That is why during the Buddha Jayanti, all the translations were supported and backed by the government. So the state authority is important in that instance. If we look at King James Bible, which was translated just a little bit more than 400 years ago, the translation was done as a government project, as a state project, between the state and the Church of England and the Parliament. It was a collective effort. There were three teams to work on this. Two universities existed at that time, Oxford University and Cambridge University, each has one team to translate the Bible. And Westminster Parliament has another team of scholars. So those three teams, they work together. Oxford and Cambridge, remember at that time, all the scholars were monks. So the scholarship authority came from there. Then the state authority came from Westminster. The finance, with that large scale project, it would only be possible if the state comes in and finances the effort. We may ask then, what about the Bali Text Society? They didn't have the backing of the British government. Not that the British government was against them, but the British government wasn't interested in them. What about what we have on the internet, online, Thanissaro Bhikkhus, the American Buddhist monk, ordained in Thailand? What about his translation, which you can have on his website, Access to Insight? The name of the website, Access to Insight. If you look at his website, you have the translation of quite a few sutras. What about that kind of individual efforts? As far as the Bali Text Society is concerned, although the British government was not directly involved in that, I would still say that the British government backing was there indirectly, because the early translators like Professor Tudor, Professor Rhys Davids, they were professors at universities, leading government universities. So the authority of their university, the authority of their academic position, come from the government, ultimately. But not only that, the Bali Text Society also was in touch with the Sangha, the scholar in Sri Lanka, in Ceylon, those days, and also in Thailand or Siam those days, also in Myanmar or Burma those days. Prince Patriarch, the Sankaraja, Vajirayana Varorot, he helped with some of the editing tasks of the Bali text. And Rama V, King Chulalongkorn, also gave some finance to publish the books. So you can see their names being acknowledged in the earlier publication. Professor Tudor and Professor Rhys Davids, they learned Pali in Sri Lanka. Of course, they already knew Sanskrit before then, but they learned the Tripitaka and the translation from that. And from Myanmar, the Bali Text Society kept in touch with Lady Searo. You can see the correspondence between Mrs. Rhys Davids and Lady Searo. And the collaboration went on until the 1970s. The head of the Myanmar Sangha, the chairman of the State Sangha Manaka Council, Pamo Searo, Professor Kumara Biwamsa, translated Yamaka, one of the Abhidhamma texts. So you can see the collaboration. And the Patana, was published Patana translation was published in the late 1960s. The same with the Anga. So the collaborative efforts were ongoing until that time. But I think we need to be frank where we have setback and where we can address this. I cannot examine all the setback in this presentation. In some other places, I have written some articles. For example, in the Silver Jubilee Journal of Buddhism by University of Sri Lanka, I have written one article about Buddhist universities. How Buddhist universities in Sri Lanka, in Cambodia, in Myanmar, in Laos, how they face setback in the 1960s. That was when communism and socialism became stronger and stronger in the world. Some Buddhist universities were shut down, some were overtaken by the state, such as Kalina University and Sri Chaitanya University in Sri Lanka. But in Myanmar they were shut down. I think those setbacks also affected the translation effort. Today, by coming together like this, I hope we go away at the end of the day with one thought: what we have achieved so far and how we can build on that. What kind of setback have we had? And how to redress that problem. I hope this is not the only conference on translation of the words of the Buddha. I hope we will have many more conferences, not just in Myanmar but also in other places. And at Yangon University, I hope this is not the first and the last conference we talk about this very important issue. With this, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, especially Yangon University for hosting this conference. And scholars from other countries, from Thailand, Professor Dr. Prasi Kambirayan, from Vietnam, Venerable Professor Dr. Lim Mantat, with PhD from Wisconsin University, who knows no less than 8 languages and who has been part of the translation of the Mahayana and the Pali canonical text into Vietnamese. Venerable Professor Dr. Yun Su from China, who knows Pali, Sanskrit, Theravada and Mahayana scriptures, and was part of common Buddhist text, just like Professor Lim Mantat and Venerable Professor Sikambirayan. And also Dr. Alex, a Cambridge graduate, who is working in Thailand at the moment, a fine Pali scholar who is very interested in Abhidhamma Tika in Myanmar. Venerable Professor Drama Kosajan, acting rector of Sianuraja Buddhist University of Cambodia. Another fine linguist who knows Pali, Sanskrit, French, English, Sinhala, Thai, you name it, okay, he knows them. And Dr. Herat from Sri Lanka, a senior lecturer in Pali, a fine Pali scholar and translator himself. I'd like to thank all of them. I also like to thank the sponsor of the air ticket and the hotel, Max Myanmar Company, and also the sponsor of the meal, Lungsa Aipong, Paisao and family, and everyone who has put in a lot of effort to make today's conference happen. I hope to see you in future conferences related to the translation of the words of the Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.